conversation with an ASU student yesterday. She came in and interviewed me for her, it's a psychology course, but it was a psychology course on criminal investigations. As that happened, or close in time, I was also interviewed by a local reporter on very significant things that are going on in the world related to law enforcement and self-defense and the laws in Arizona. And I was left with just depressed, really, and disappointed in the platforms, the press, and the reporting, and the type of reporting that was done. And so that just, again, motivated to say this conversation needs to happen because the press has failed our students. The press, our politicians in their statements have failed our students and our public. And so many people who pretend to represent public servants and policing and the government have failed the public. And so it caused me to consider internally is how is the public served by me in my role as an attorney, because I am a private attorney, formerly a prosecutor who was a public servant, was committed to the public service. I did prosecuted, trained other prosecutors, and supervised other prosecutors in the most serious of crimes, sex crimes, homicide, death penalty, some of the most violent stuff. And because that's my background, I wanted to bring together a team of public servants to have a conversation about some of the issues that are going on in the world. And so I brought other people who have experience in policing and in law enforcement and in investigations, and teachers as well. And because we've all had long careers, I was able to find those with some of the same people. And so the people I'm going to have a conversation with include Carly Moncher, who is a former law enforcement, and she was also I'm going to say an investigator, also in the criminal justice system, and was also a teacher and a trainer at a very high level. We have Hillary Jenkins, who was a military policeman in the Army, as well as I like to say flat-foot or a regular old local policeman in the Midwest, Chicago area. Am I right about that?
You are.
And a Fed, a G-man, an FBI agent. And that idea, that word of being not just a federal agent, but being particularly an FBI agent, that really has some...
Don't forget the special part.
The special agent, that's right. The gravitas, it's a little different than others, but it's certainly relevant given what's going on in the world. And then Kristen, who was a elementary school teacher for many years, special ed, reading specialist, but also worked in the courtrooms and in the courts, in juvenile courts especially, doing investigations for children who are at risk and for families who were dealing with things, and also was a what's called a mitigation specialist or a mitigation investigator in death penalty case. And so I thought, what better team to get together just to have a conversation about public service and the government and government operations in hopes of providing just a little bit of service to the public. Because as I talked to this reporter, I remembered why I stopped doing press and how frustrated I was with reporters and journalists in their failure to provide context to a situation. And as we're sitting here at January 27th, 2026, there's a lot of things going on in the world and people talking about what the law is and law enforcement and constitution and state enforcement and federal agent this and self-defense and all these issues that are quite squarely in my wheelhouse and in my lane and in the lane of my friends here that I've brought together. And so I just want to give you my take and see what you guys think about things and what's in your head as you're observing things in the world. And for me, as I was trying to express to this reporter, when she asked me about, well, what is the law of self-defense in Arizona? And what I told her is to say what the law is meaningless. The law is a collection of things that ultimately depend on the law of procedure. And so if you're talking about what the application of the statute is, well, you have to have a known fact pattern, which means you have to be able to have reliable facts, and then you have to have a presentation of this material. And so the law of procedure is the process the process of collecting and obtaining reliable data, facts, information, evidence, and then the reliable and full and complete presentation of those facts, data, evidence. And if either of those things are incomplete or lacking, that's a violation of the law of process or due process, which to me is the core of what the Constitution is meant to provide as a framework and a procedure. That's the only way we can even begin to have a functional society, a functional culture, but particularly a functional justice system. And so the law of procedure is something that's in my head right now more than ever. When that's applied uniformly and when it's reliable, that's when we have a functional system. What I'm concerned with is that is what's been violated here and what's causing this tension between especially the federal government and the state government, and a question of whether or not the law of procedure is being violated. And until we can agree on what the procedure should be, then talking about what the actual application of any statute or law is meaningless, because then we're just talking about the law of power and not the law of procedure.
Well, I will tell you, for me, my sort of the last few days, what has just been on repeat in my brain is what happened to the Constitution, and not the piece of paper, but the meaning behind it. As a nation, we have, for years, for centuries, we have been looking to this document as our moral compass, the certificate of our values as a shared people in one country, and legally what is precedent, what is right, what is true, what is sure. And I feel like all of that has now gone out the window, and it has indeed become a piece of paper that holds no value, no meaning, no significance, and therefore can be violated by the government, not, but by the government at any fair term.
Mm-hmm. And doesn't it then just become, rather than a shield of protection for rights, but a weapon with which to oppress and cause harm? And right now we're in a debate over when is death allowed, celebrated, justified by either a government official, or now questions about when and if civilians civilians are justified in bringing violence against a government official.
Right.
And that entire debate and discussion demonstrates that this paper, this document, this concept of the Constitution and the laws that are been created and advanced from them are not providing the safeguards that we would want them to. The fact that we are even having this discussion about what the law is of self-defense when engaged with a federal agent or a law enforcement. Because it's really clear laws of self-defense are really meant to explain when a civilian is dealing with a civilian.
That's right.
Second Amendment.
Right. Now, which is interesting because I was thinking about that today. Go ahead. What are you giggling about?
There's so much to unpack here, and I appreciate what Carly said about the constitutional crisis, which I think it is. I've been thinking about it the last several days myself, and even contrasting it to the Bible and how all that has changed with interpretation. There are some people that want to hold fast to Old Testament versus New Testament. They want to pick and choose which parts they like and they want to follow, and other parts they want to not follow or change or whatever. And here we have a situation where we have the government, or I prefer to say this administration, because I think we all would agree that we need governmental support to live in this age and time in which we live.
We love our firefighters. We love our libraries.
Here you've got protesters, and I've got my colleagues, retirees, that are publicly social media posts saying, Freddie should have known better than to carry a gun to a protest.
Me too.
Wait a second.
I do as well.
There's nothing wrong. That's Second Amendment. You're encouraged to carry a weapon in this country. You can get a permit. You can open it. You can have it out. And you can.
And that's been a fight in our country.
And there's nothing that says you can't go to a protest with it. Although I just heard today some states prohibit that, and I don't have the info. But
and every state does have its own gun laws. Sure.
Yeah, every state.
That's right.
But to me, I'm already thinking where this is going is we're not going to be able to protest anymore.
Mm-hmm. And that.
Well, I think that's the overall goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That appears to be so. And again, it's this idea of law of procedure. You mentioned the Bible, the lesson of the Gospels especially, and Jesus of Nazareth. My reading of it was a lesson on due process, that we're to treat our neighbors, ourselves, and our enemies with the same standard.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I submit that's really
guaranteed by Constitution.
Right.
And again, if the Constitution matters, then what is happening is implicitly wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carly.
But if the Constitution has in effect died, which I am starting to believe at this point, then what the hell? What is due process? It means nothing.
Right. If it's not, if it's, you mentioned the guns at protests. Well, all we have to do is go to a couple of years ago when there were protests and you had people showing up with long arms, with rifles.
That's right.
And in fact, killing people. And the same people on one side,
yes,
who were saying that this man should not even have been holstered and armed, were celebrating and defending the exact same, not the exact same behavior, more aggressive, worse behavior, which was using the weapon at a protest. This is the very example of hypocrisy. And a violation of due process, or the law and order. Because that, I submit, is what law and order is meant to be. We have the laws. The order is that they are applied consistently and uniformly, regardless of identity. Otherwise, you have law and chaos.
Yeah, Carly and Kristen.
Or tyranny.
Or tyranny. Yeah. Carly and Kristen, Matt and I had a phone conversation earlier today, and a little bit touched on due process. And I'm big on words, and I thought, due process, what does that mean to me, and what is it? And I immediately reversed the words. Whenever a situation comes up, they're
What is
entitled
the
to due
process
process. Process due.
Process
Yes,
due.
you got it before I
Yep.
even said it. There's a process that's due to everyone, and that's been obliterated.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what in the heck is going on here? I don't even recognize the process.
And you've been involved into these
I've been in
processes.
And then you're talking about procedures. Oh my gosh, I was a new agent in 1984, and I was issued a big, thick paperback book, FRCP, Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure.
That's right.
It's the
Yeah.
most worn paperback I've ever had.
Huh.
And there is so much in there for federal rules
Yeah.
of criminal procedure. It's all laid out. It's all spelled out.
Now, Arizona happens to be one of the states that, for its entire history, has basically fully adopted the federal rules, and so Arizona's rules of criminal procedure are very much in line and in keeping with the federal rules. So this is what I've been trained in for all intents and purposes as well, and they've really come from some great places and some honest places and some rigorous places of it comes from bad places as a result of some lessons learned, right?
Yeah,
from-
right.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's the whole thing.
But now we're going backwards to having to learn those lessons again when all you have to do is apply the existing, what was existing
Codified.
and establish
Yeah.
procedures. And one example we've talked about, Hill, is that with the federal that federal agencies historically cooperated with state agencies. Am I right? I'm not wrong about that, am I?
Well, it's evolved over the years. There's been lots of times in our history where there hasn't been cooperation, but that's the keystone is cooperation, working together, sharing information, being collaborative, having task force approaches, being current, using technology to your advantage. And the idea that someone would come out within our administration and prematurely already tell the public through the media that this case is over. Yeah, there's no process, there's no procedure. It's this.
Right.
This person is that. This
Without
person,
conducting an investigation.
with zero.
Right.
And that's the part that's causing me some loss of my footing, I guess, with feeling stable and having confidence and actually being proud today of what's happening in our country. Are you proud?
I'm the opposite.
I'm mortified.
The opposite.
Mortified. Okay,
Yeah.
Carly went right to mortified.
opposite,
I mean,
yeah.
that's a great word.
As
Mortification.
I spoke to a friend of mine. I still maintain friendships in local law enforcement, and I talked to a couple of them over the last few days, and found out that they specifically, these local agencies, have in Arizona have reached out to the federal government and to ICE in particular, and have said, please inform us of what's going on. We will show up and we will provide crowd control. We will ensure the safety of your officers and our people, that it doesn't have to be putting one at risk over the other, that their intent in these various operations being peace officers, providing more peace to the people, more peace to the agents, understanding that, yes, there is an official job that needs to be done. They're not going to get into that, and they're not going to let people and encourage people not to interfere with the job or with the federal government's operations, even if you disagree with them, or maybe especially if you disagree with them. That's not the police aren't going to do that. They're not going to get involved. They're not going to pick they're not going to go against the federal government's operation. They can't.
Right.
They cannot, will not.
Except, here's my argument. Who makes that claim that they can't?
Well, as I understand it, existing policy within the agencies that there will be, that they are going
Mutual cooperation. I
well,
understand that. But
yeah.
what is the baseline of the requirement that the states do not intervene in federal police matters?
The Supremacy Clause.
Yeah.
The Supremacy
Clause comes from where?
Effectively, judicial fiat.
Mm-hmm.
For all intents and purposes, it is judge imposed.
And what is it that our judiciary makes a pledge to when they become a member of the bench?
The Constitution.
There you fucking go. That's my argument.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a fair one. Because as what I pointed out, I have a number of quarrels with some things that were going on by essentially politicians in Arizona over this debate. And you have the Arizona Attorney General that raised some questions and said, hey, there's real concerns. We have the Castle Doctrine, we have self-defense, and there's concerns if there are people who appear as federal agents, but they're masked, and can people rely and reasonably believe they're a federal agent? And that could they may have the ability to use force given Arizona's laws. And there's a lot of criticism about that, but the primary criticism came from other politicians, other political candidates, or lobbyists. The police agencies themselves didn't come out and criticize it specifically, but instead they simply clarified what they would be doing and what they would look like. And so Phoenix PD, I know Flagstaff PD, I saw one. I saw some others.
Mesa.
They all essentially said the same thing: is we do not engage with immigration and customs enforcement. We will fully identify ourselves, and we will not be in face coverings or masks. So they put that out. The only other group there's another group, and this really frustrated me. There was a couple groups actually that attempted to speak on behalf of police but have no authority to speak for police, and that's certain heads of police unions. But police unions, as I understand it, and the actual law enforcement people can clarify, as I understand it, they are more lobbyists for their for police officers. They lobby for budgets, they lobby for money, but not they don't have the authority to speak on behalf of police writ large, and certainly not for any individual agency. Is that you're both understanding? Yeah. Is that a fair statement?
It is. Unfortunately, I wasn't under a police union when I served.
You were not?
I was not.
I wasn't either.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so
I got this information because I happen to represent somebody who was the vice president of the larger police union, and so those are the debates that are happening, and that was part of my frustration of the press, is that they were misleading the public to say that these statements were actually speaking on behalf of police.
That's right. When
it was ultimately a two-party, for all intents and purposes, debate. It's the Arizona Attorney General is a Democrat and is a political office. And this person, I've known my entire basically career. I went to law school with her, in fact, and I'm very familiar with her political arc, and she is very much a partisan. But so are all the other people criticizing her. And so I do have a quarrel a little bit with both things, because I do think that some of the things she said, although true, could have been presented just a little bit differently, as saying there are concerns and we need more order. We need better procedure. We need more reliable procedure when dealing with this. Otherwise, there is a risk of more chaos, more violence, more death.
Yes.
And I would have preferred that, because it is true to the people of Arizona. There is an exception to the self-defense laws that say you are not justified if the person who is using threats or force, including deadly force, is a law enforcement officer acting in their official capacity. Now, the question becomes interesting when you deal with, okay, if they're operating in their official capacity, but doing unlawful things.
Right.
That's really an untested question so far, and it's not a question that should be litigated in the streets
Or the media.
or the media. That is what the courts need to be out there doing, I submit, or these officials need to be rushing to the courts and saying, what is an unlawful act? I mean, these are really the questions that we're dealing with these federal agents. It's often these people understand these are bona fide federal agents, despite the lack of uniforms, right? Then it becomes, but if they engage in an unlawful act, what is one's rights under, let's stick with Arizona law of castle doctrine, or of self-defense, or of justification. See, these are where really what the question is.
Well, and doesn't it get dicey when citizens now are seeing with our own eyes they're not acting lawfully, but yet we're still supposed to choose as citizens that are untrained to just always act lawfully?
That's what I mean.
Is frightening.
The Constitution binds us as citizens to our own behavior, but it does not now bind the government to any form of anything.
Yes.
Decorum,
And how
they
can
do
you
whatever the hell they want.
Yes. How can you promise that if you're this is a citizen question, right, that why we're here. How can you promise that if they even are approaching me and I, putting my hands up, hey, I'm willing to work with you. We've seen them now take action, take violence. So how do you even choose to act? And can you assume, no, don't worry, it's not, you don't have any self-defense worry, they're going to be fine, they're going to treat you right.
Right.
But no,
can a reasonable person assume no harm?
Yes.
Right.
No.
Given what we're observing, I think the answer has to be, it's reasonable to conclude no. It's reasonable to conclude no, given what has been observed. And when they have made the declaration that there will be no opportunity for procedure or investigation to occur so you can challenge it.
Wow.
That's right.
I just thought of expectation of privacy, and it jumped right to expectation of security. There's no more expectation of security.
There's no expectation of either. But yes, the bigger of the two being security.
Right.
Wow.
And that's right. Because we used to tell people, listen, when you're dealing with law enforcement, here's what the law is, and here's what you can do, and here's what you can refuse. Right? You can refuse to. You have the right to refuse field sobriety tests. Well, what if they demand, and after I refuse, they say you must get out and do that? Well, then at some point you're going to have to comply, and the time to then litigate that after you've documented that is going to be in court somewhere else.
That's right.
That type of advice can't really be given anymore if you're not afforded the procedure and the opportunity with which to either collect evidence or present evidence.
And when our major agencies are fighting over whether it's even right to get evidence or hide evidence.
Right. And we have this two-party issue going on in our justice system at the judicial level, where we have politically appointed judges who are appointed for life, and depending on which party you claim is going to be which side, so to speak, you take. And that has never been the concept of justice, which I have in air quotes, in our country.
Right. And we used to be, look, there was always injustice, there was always corruption that's going to exist, but
Absolutely.
But
it was pretty much across the board.
Right. I've never seen to this level the partisanship
Yeah.
That's right.
within the judiciary and within policing.
I'm
Yes.
picturing a cartoonist with a Republican judge and a Democrat defendant,
Yeah.
and the arrow pointing to jail.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
Or insert a 5-year-old instead of, now the 5-year-old is the defendant.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, there's that's been my thing from the very beginning is these kids now are seeing such terrible things on the news if their parents have the news on, or if
Yep.
people are talking about it at recess, even these little kids, right?
Yep.
What is their picture of humanity and goodness and
Absolutely,
peace officers?
Kristen.
What does
Kristen.
this even look like? A 5-year-old right now is going to be 8 in 3 years, and 3 years of
When I grow up, I want to be a police officer or an ICE agent
Yeah.
or an ICE
and what does that mean now? Do you get to grow up and shoot people?
So that's the question. What kind of people are we recruiting, and who wants to be part of this?
right.
And you know what, Kristen, I've been reading about this topic, your question, my whole life. Any book from Holocaust survivors, from families, from children of Holocaust survivors, and the picture is bleak of what they believe in terms of justice and law enforcement. And it is going to, in many ways, it is going to mirror and echo those perceptions because that's what's around them at this point.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah, Carly, I just feel like I've been lost in time because when I was a police officer, late 70s, early 80s, we didn't have a union, and it's because we trusted the mayor, we trusted the city council, we trusted the police chief, we had benefits, we had support for the job, we had processes that we'd go through to better improve situations that would help us
Policies
do the
and-
job better.
Absolutely.
And there was always
Yeah.
a goal for continuous improvement. And now everyone has lost faith
yeah.
and
Yes.
lost trust and
there's no
is
truth.
adrift. There's a drift. They're adrift as to what do I latch on to right now.
That's
And what-
right. And
and
it
then
doesn't
what do
make
I do
law
as an
enforcement any safer.
What do
That's
I
the
do as
thing
a-
that
yeah.
It
It
does
just-
say that again
Yeah.
because that's an overarching theme. Carly, say that again.
it doesn't make law enforcement any safer.
Right.
In fact, it hinders them. And it scrambles my brain that so many law enforcement or law enforcement supporters are still in favor, no matter what the behavior is, just because of the party line. And it's blowing my mind.
It really is. You know, the other thing that as we've been talking here, what I am acknowledging and want to acknowledge is my minority friends would tell me, yeah, Matt, this has been our existence forever.
For day one.
1,000%.
You're now
Amen.
Getting a taste of it.
Getting just a taste of it because finally
Yeah.
a white woman and a white man were on the other side of that gun.
That's right.
But the Constitution's never meant it. Procedure, the thing you're talking about that you hold up and you treat as your scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And it is what I in my transition, my faith transition, I went from the scriptures of the Bible to the scripture of the Constitution and some of these rules of criminal procedure and the rules of evidence, which I felt were a reliable way for approximating truth, understanding that you
Absolutely.
can never get there.
When it goes back to the original question that you asked, Matt, which is what is law? And there was a point in our country's history where it was legal to own humans.
Right. Right.
So for those of us who are just getting this taste of injustice and what could possibly be the limits of that, this is in centuries for some of our citizens. And it is absolutely worth acknowledging.
Yeah. You know, and I go back to my early career, my first career as a prosecutor in Maricopa County. The Republican county attorney and the Republican sheriff were at odds with each other nonstop because the county attorney was constantly trying to keep in check this tyrannical sheriff.
Indeed.
And it was just in the last, since then that we saw this marriage in politics between DAs or county attorneys, prosecutors, and the law enforcement, where they really, really once were. There was a check and a balance. And that just those are the things that don't exist. And I'm going both sides. This isn't just a problem of one side. It's just that one side currently is exercising its power more.
Yes.
As we exist
agreed.
today. But I'm always the side of the opposition. It didn't matter. It didn't matter whether the person I voted for won or not. The moment the person I voted for won, I immediately became part of the opposition because I'm a citizen. Not just to endorse him or her because we share party affiliation. That's, again, as an Arizona kid, independence was kind of baked into my bones.
Agreed.
We were never really, we certainly supported and really took seriously the idea of states' rights and individual rights.
Mm-hmm.
And so I very much blame the last 15 years of the rest of the country coming in and infiltrating our independent ways with their particular partisanship ways. Now, I wish I could, that's me othering, other people. I'm not saying we're all immune to it, but by and large, I like to believe that it's just too hot here to deal with so much of this bullshit. And I'm still have faith in the people that really mean these things, the things that they say when they talk about states' rights, individual sovereignty, liberty, which ultimately is, liberty only exists if there is law and order or process due everyone.
That's right.
If we're truly to be a so-called Christian nation, and that's debatable, but let's assume that it is, then we must treat our friend, our neighbor, ourselves, and our enemy with the same standard of proof and the same procedure.
That's right.
We used to value truth, though, in that procedure and peace, and right, there was truth and evidence. And we are in a time where we don't want to look at truth. We want to deny, but leaders, ICE, that's happening, they want to cover up truth or disregard evidence. And if truth is not continually fought for and found, everything falls apart.
Kris,
because now it's just either choice or opinion or who's right and who's wrong, not truth.
I don't even want to call them leaders. They don't even have the qualities of what I think a leader is and what a leader should do, what a leader could do. So
Those in power.
that's not a knock
I
against
agree.
you.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
those in power, yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and it's disgusting.
Well, and I had somebody reach out and they said, let's not call them federal agents. We need to just call them thugs.
Yeah,
And I said,
hear that a lot.
And I understood that, but I said, no, they are federal agents.
That's
And
right.
that is what is even potentially worse and even more of an indictment, is because they are doing it under the color
Under
of
the guise.
law
That's right.
as effectively representatives of us.
Well, I
That's right.
thought it was a little too hasty to start immediately with abolish ICE,
Yeah.
but here we are. We're still not through the month of January yet, and I've had time to, ruminate on this, and I really think that it's going to have to be abolished in order
Yeah, I
in
think
order
it's
to
gonna have to
recover.
be-
Like it's going to we're going to have to change the name and look through our marketplace. How
Absolutely.
many times we've had disastrous things happen, and the name
They
gets changed.
The CPS, right?
Yeah,
CPS,
the
that's
branding, and
Matters.
yeah, everything.
Absolutely.
Because it's
We're
got
going to have to burn this to the ground.
Yeah.
It has to be a
and start
wholesale
anew.
fire sale.
Well, let's
Let's put their
now, let's
sunshine
go back
melted
to,
away.
but let's go back to where it started. 9/11
That's right.
and the Patriot Act, the so-called Patriot Act.
Yep.
And there were many of us that were, I'm going to say, the Barry Goldwater conservatives.
Gold
The
botter.
Goldwater,
Botter. I thought you said botter.
Barry Goldwater conservatives, the Sandra Day O'Connor Republicans, the Libertarians that really were fighting against and concerned with the application of the Patriot Act and moving from INS. And Hillary pointed this out to me one time, is when it was INS, that's Immigration and Naturalization
Naturalizations.
Service. It was a service.
We're serving
Like the Postal Service
service. We're providing a service
That's
to
right.
you.
versus enforcement. And the same thing we were, again, talk about these words. Peace officer versus SWAT agent, right? Or a SWAT officer or a law enforcement
Operator.
That's right. And so I agree with that
Now,
completely.
what did I tell you? What did I tell you in terms of this? Language is behavior.
Language is behavior.
And that's exactly what we're seeing
Yeah.
with these ramped up kind of marketing names of
Terrorists.
more militaristic. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Language is behavior, and we're
We
seeing
are
it lay
putting
bare.
it out for all the citizens and all the world to see that we are enforcement.
Yeah.
Ah,
And and Carly and I were talking on a separate conversation about some personal things. Is my concept and our concept of justice, and was questioning whether or not actual justice exists in the criminal justice system because of the system.
Right.
And the thing that Carly mentioned that I'll repeat, but that really struck with me is, but we do have the ability to be justice as individuals.
I feel like it's our duty, even more now.
Yeah.
So how do you do that safely?
Well, that's an excellent question.
Well,
Because we believe that, all four of us believe that here, and there are so many Americans that do, but they want us to believe that in order to stay safe, you need to go home and be quiet. While
Yeah.
they do whatever they want. And so how do we do that safely? We must.
I think I have
we must do
some
it.
proposals and the first is for people, and especially students. I also think if we go back in history, the Minnesota called in the National Guard, and they were there saying, "Hey, we're here to protect the people." And I made a response and said, "Well, the Kent State alumni object." And almost no one would remember what that means. I know some of the older people here do, but at one point there was a protest at Kent State University over
The National Guard was brought in.
the Vietnam War. And the
Yep.
National Guard was brought in, and shots were fired, and 4, as I recall, students were killed, and 7 or 9 were injured.
Yeah.
And so in order for justice to exist, first of all, I reject the idea that martyrdom of anonymous people especially, and really anyone, is valuable. We can have
Agreed.
that. We can have that debate about maybe specific instances, but survival is the best form of resistance. And so to be safe, and if one is going to protest, agitate, be there, be safe. Don't get too close. The law in Arizona is that you can record, but that you must stay at a minimum 8 feet away from law enforcement.
Well, and this is the difference. These aren't protesters lined up on the main street
Right.
Yeah, these are
protesting
people from
something
their
that's going
neighborhoods.
on. Yeah, this is right in their neighborhood.
neighborhood.
There's real live law enforcement
Right.
action taking place,
Right.
and they're in the midst of it.
Yeah, they're bringing the fight to their doors, literally.
That's right.
So
And I
there's
also
that
saw-
distinction.
Interesting. Yeah.
I saw suggestions saying if you are going to engage in any type of recording or protesting, get a burner phone. Leave your phone at home. And I
Yeah.
thought it was a great suggestion.
Great suggestion. And if at some point, if at whatever point, law enforcement, federal agents, that's the other thing I say. Oh, don't call them law enforcement because that's really reserved for local, state, and county police officers. And I
Yeah.
support that. So I'm going to start saying
I agree with that as well.
I do too. Federal agents versus local, state, county law enforcement. We can distinguish between, again, state power and federal power. But the other thing is once a federal agent or law enforcement officer has made the decision you're going to be detained, arrested, and taken, stop. Don't resist. Don't apply force, because if we try to litigate questions of justification in the streets, we have enough data to know that the civilian loses
Every time.
every time. And resistance is the best, or survival is the best form of resistance, and we can make an attempt to litigate that issue.
Come back to fight another
Come back to
day
fight
and another
day.
way.
That's right.
Yeah, while you're still alive.
Yep.
That's right. It is not, your life
And-
is so precious, and you can do more with it in the future, because we don't know what the next weeks, months, years are going to be. We would rather have those of you who care so much to be around to engage in productive things, not just be a soldier in somebody else's war where they're willing to sacrifice you on the altar of their power.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to learn more about de-escalation and what's involved in that. And I also thought this morning, what's happening with me personally is I'm going through the classic 5 stages of grief.
Oh, interesting.
Grief.
And
Yeah.
I looked into that a little bit. It's been identified as 5 classic steps, but there's 2 more added now, and those are also applicable. And I think that's what everyone's trying to put their finger on right now. Why am I feeling this way? Well, you're grieving what's happening in our nation that we love.
And
Yeah.
it brings me
Straight across.
kind of where I began, I guess, which is to say is it possible to not pick a side, but to pick the side of order, procedure, and process due to every individual, to all sides, because there's not really just 2. And I am, because I am critical of all those that are in power. That doesn't mean I stump for or am on the other side. I'm one of the very rare independents, but that doesn't mean I'm neutral on any particular issue. Independence doesn't mean neutrality, and you just say, well, this is now reminded of another, one of my other favorite phrases, which is,
I'm Switzerland.
yeah, well, no, I at least like positions the way Jesus likes people, either hot or cold. Take a side so I know which side you're on, or not which side you're on, as it relates to the position, because what position you, or what side you're on related to a position tells me a lot more about your ethics and about your sense of God, theology, justice, that make me know whether or not you're a reliable reporter or not.
Yeah, and I also feel like there's so much of a spectrum. And that's why having conversations with people and actively listening to what they're saying and not just formulating your next thought and your next rebuke and all the things, but you can hear some of those commonalities as you have those conversations. And even if it may be that you end up with so much difference, I don't think it's going to be quite as much difference as before you started the conversation. At least that's been my experience.
I agree. But if we're to have, instead of having shared identities, I'm interested in finding those that we do share values with,
Great.
principles
Yes.
with. And a great place to start is if we share the law of procedure, the law of order, and agree that we will treat ourselves, our neighbor, and our enemy with the same standards of proof and with the same types of investigation and the same procedure that is the collection of reliable information and then the presentation of reliable information. And then we can come to a place of at least shared reality. And then if we don't draw conclusions that are the same, at least we're dealing from the same material.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly how, to answer Kristen's question, how we become justice safely is we come from that starting point, whether it be for a position that we stand for or against or somewhere in the middle, we still apply those same principles across the board.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, my name's Matt Long.
I'm Kristen Long.
I'm Hillary Jenkins.
And I'm Carly Moncher.
And we're the Wayfarers. More soon.